It is Monday on Daily Delivery. Michael Rand here, Patrick Reusse with me as usual. Patrick was in Washington all weekend and maybe didn't see everything in Twin Cities sports, but it sounds like he saw more than enough of the Timberwolves. He's got some thoughts on the Wild, as do I. We got to talk a little Twins as well, because they suddenly, Patrick, are about as good as any team in baseball. So we'll get to them in a little bit. But I think first, Patrick, we got to tie a little bow around that Wolves season, which ended with not one, not two, but three playoff losses in which they had, double-digit leads in the fourth quarter and couldn't win any of those three. As we can talk a little bit less about the games themselves and kind of more about the path forward, but I've talked about it plenty. What did you see overall in this series?
I don't like their guards, frankly. I don't think Russell is. If you can get out from under Russell, looking back at it, I would have. I'd have to say I'd take Andrew Wiggins and drafted a point guard. Seventh overall or whatever it was, over what this Russell has brought. He's he got him. He won the play-in game for him. I'll say that for him. But his erratic, horrible play is. When they have to put Jordan McLaughlin, who's basically a kid off the streets, player, it's not a bad player, but he's certainly didn't come into the league with much of a reputation over him. It's their guards. Beverly's a great defender, but he doesn't. I don't like him 38 minutes a game. So I think they need guards bad. We always have we've talked about the need for bigger, more rebounding, bigger, stronger guy inside to help out Cat. And Mike, the whole story was going in. We got to keep them off the offensive board, and they didn't. 17 and 18 offensive rebounds the two losses. The last two losses, right? Wasn't it 17?
Yeah, it was 18. I know in Game 5, and they had a bunch in Game 6. 17 sounds right.
17 was 17 again, and I don't know. I don't see this as some season of triumph just because they made the playoffs and want to play-in game. We're surprised they won 46 games, but to look at this and say they're on their way now, beyond Edwards being as good as we thought he was going to be, right? Isn't that how good he was this year? He was as good as we thought he was going to be.
I think that's about right. He didn't take a huge leap forward. He took a step forward.
Yeah. And McDaniels has that great last game, and everybody's saying, "Oh, he's the future. Look out now." Well, he stunk about half the time in the series when he couldn't make a shot, and he did get out of the habit of committing all these fouls. He's a starter, but he certainly has to show you a lot more consistency than he did this year. He's 21, blah blah blah, but. I don't know. I don't know where they are right now. I don't buy the whole young team thing because, Russell age-wise is not old, but he's played hundreds of games in the NBA. Cat's played hundreds of games, 1,000 games in the NBA. I don't see Cat ever being any better than he is this year. Do you? This is as good a year as he's ever gonna have. Plus, don't we get into the contract situation here pretty quick? They're going to have to pay him the fortune or see if he wants to stay. You're getting into that situation now. But to me, you got to move Russell, and if somebody will take that $30 million expiring contract, you got to get a new guard in here to run this operation. It was all these honor we want to give Reusse and Rand for getting rid of Wiggins and doing a few other things. It's that trade is a push at best, and probably worse than that when you consider they gave up a draft choice with it. I don't know. Look around the league. You think the Lakers aren't going to be in the playoffs next year? You think you're gonna be back in the play? In my opinion, you're gonna be back in the play-ins again next year. Looking at it right now, unless they pull off something that I don't know is feasible here.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake for 24/7 gaming, fun restaurants and bars, and luxurious hotel rooms. And join Club M to bask in the rewards. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I had jotted down, obviously, what to do about D'Angelo Russell, because, we've talked about it plenty, that as he's gone this year, they've gone, but that's cut both ways. And to have to bench somebody, to bench a max player in an elimination game at home when the score is tied, I mean, that tells you just how ineffective he was in that game, and maybe gives you a hint of, do you really do that if that's a player that's part of your long-term future? I don't know, but I think you're right. My opinion of D'Lo, kind of like with you, I think your opinion of D'Lo probably changed from game to game almost this year. It's like when there was good D'Lo, you're like, okay, I see it. And then when it's bad, it's just so bad. So how do you reconcile that? And you're right. He's a free agent after next season. Cat's got 2 years left on his contract, but usually you're right. That's the time when you kind of figure out what's the long-term plan with somebody in this league. And you're right. I think Beverly was good for them this year. They signed him to that 1-year extension, so they got him for next year as well. But you're right. I could do with maybe just a little bit less Patrick Beverly, maybe have him, fade a little bit more to the background, but they also need some more experience, a little bit more experience, a little more playoff experience on their roster. Cause you saw them just wilt in the fourth quarter of those games 3, 5, and 6. I looked it up, Patrick. They got outscored 114-58 in the fourth quarters of those 3 games. And you saw game 1 Sunday, Memphis almost did it to Golden State. Golden State had a 10-point lead in that game, and Memphis came all the way back, but Golden State had just enough of those players who've been there before to fend that off, to defend Ja Morant down the stretch, win by 1. That's what the Wolves don't really have. They don't have those guys yet that have the experience to make that one play. So if you can get out from underneath D'Lo, that'd be great. Otherwise, I think the biggest thing is you can't extend him. There under no circumstances can you extend that contract, right?
We also have this asinine idea that I look at our comments once in a while, and we still well, what would Cat think if they got rid of his buddy D'Lo? That ship has sailed. That's there's a lot of rumors that it sailed during the season too, that D'Lo has managed to frustrate his old buddy, but this personal relationship that they have is a bunch of nonsense that it becomes a little, oh yeah, he's a buddy of mine, blah, blah, blah. And then that becomes, it's, this guy making $30 million is going to be upset if he loses his buddy to a better player. Listen, relationships like that are bonded when they meet in Las Vegas for a weekend. That's when those bond. They don't give a damn whether they're each on this team or not. It's all a bunch of nonsense. And I don't know. You can't bring back this same kids. And the other thing is Edwards gets just nothing but praise, but he disappeared too in those fourth quarters. He didn't handle it. Now he's, your point that being there this next time, he should be better then, because he should have a better experience with it. He shouldn't get rattled like he did this time. But he was nothing to write home about in the fourth quarters when they faded either. So, he's got some improvement to do, to say the least. And it's this idea that he's going to be one of the 5 best players in the league. I don't see it. Maybe one of the 12 best, maybe 15 best, but I don't see him going to be a MVP candidate or anything like that. I don't see him getting to that point.
No, I think he's going to be. I think he's got still room under that ceiling, but I don't think they're going to fulfill their potential until he's better, until he can be a fourth quarter primary ball handler too, where he's
Yeah.
not just shooting but distributing, just attacking, and it has that part of his game, and they trust him to have part of that game to make those decisions and things like that. At least until someone else can make those decisions. One other thing we can't discount too is that they didn't have perfect health this year, but their health was pretty good this year.
Yeah.
They most of their key guys played most of the games, and they were by and large available for all the playoff games. That doesn't happen every year. So I think that's the thing to watch next year. Like, are they really on this growth path where they can win 50 plus games next year, or is next year going to be a little bit of a step back because a lot of things kind of fell into place this year?
Yeah, and I'm curious. One thing that's going on here in the Twin Cities, it's kind of funny, and I guess maybe because social media in Minnesota is because you become more aware of these people, but there's this whole element out there of runaway positive vibes. We got
Sure.
this team is, they're on the rise, and well, they choked up a series in almost historical fashion. That's the bottom line. They got better. They eased into the playoffs, but they gagged like a few other teams have in NBA history. But so people have a right to be upset, but there's this whole fan base that I'm hearing from that, hey, just they're how good they're going to be, and this is the young team vibe, and then all that nonsense. And then we got the same, it kind of reminds me of the Kirk Cousins element that surfaced here, that suddenly he's taking us to the Super Bowl with a certain part of the crowd. And we're getting too positive with our sports here. Let's go back to bashing them when they deserve it. Okay, come on. We need, sports fans need that good skeptical vibe. We need more skepticism. Okay, come on. Let's stop being so positive around here.
Stop being so positive. If there's one man to lead that charge, it's you, Patrick. The skepticism charge.
Right. We need skepticism. Come on. I'm skeptical, especially these guys. It was, who knows? Next year, training camp, is Anthony Edwards going to charge in here and tell his teammates they're all a bunch of losers and he wants to be traded somewhere and challenge them to a game and want a new contract? I mean, they had a team that won more games than this 4 years ago. And
That's true.
The next year, chaos ensued. It's the NBA. We don't know. Chaos could be right around the corner in the NBA, right?
That is true.
We could be hearing the cat wants out rumors within 2 months, So
this feels more sustainable than,
yes, it does. How much more sustainable did it feel before Butler went nuts?
That's true. I mean, you're right. You felt like they had some kind of core there when Butler was there, but then all of a sudden that all blew up. I don't think next year is going to be pure chaos. I feel like when you've doubled your win total and you feel like you've got something going, I'm just concerned about them taking a step back on the court, where it's like a lot of things went well this year, but I can still see them ascending to a certain degree next year too. I think Edwards and McDaniels are the key to that. If they really are going to keep getting, if they're going to take another leap next year, especially McDaniels, with the potential, he's
got to be he was no better this year than he was the year before. He's got to get way better. He's got to get way more consistent. He played okay defensively, but he didn't make shots. Very rarely did he make shots.
No, we're comparing him to Kawhi Leonard now. He's going to go work with Kawhi Leonard in the offseason.
What's that mean? He's not going to play? He's going to steal his money the entire
I hope not. I hope that's not what it means.
National champ. The last 4 years, he's played one. He won the title. The others, it's all send me my check. I'll see you in 6 months. I don't want him to be my role model. He's what if you look at the NBA, he's one of the bad things you see in it because the guy
right now, yeah,
he never even he had ligament surgery. By 6 months later, you should be on a court, but he wasn't. So, and that year in San Antonio, he just refused to play because he was pouting. Right. So,
yeah, it's true. It's not a great.
I don't want a great player, but certainly not reliable.
If they hadn't given away some of those games, we might be talking about both the Wolves and the Wild overlapping, but instead we've kind of just transitioned smoothly from Wolves playoff season into Wild playoff season. That starts tonight. Wild and Blues game 1 at XL Energy Center. Quirk of scheduling, these two teams did not play at XL Energy Center this season because they had the 2 games in St. Louis, and the Winter Classic was the only Wild home game in the series this year.
I didn't realize that.
So Wild is a somewhat slight betting favorite, which is interesting to me, given how St. Louis played them this year.
Not slight, 3-2, $150 to make 100.
Well, last time I was 140, so it's up to 150. Okay, all right.
Well, I think it depends upon where you look. I saw one that was 147, and then one that was 150. But
okay,
they're 3-2 favorite. That's more than slight. Now, maybe not for an NHL series, but it is. I was a little surprised. I thought it'd be about 120 that the Wild was favored by, but they finished so strong that, St. Louis did too until the last week of the season. But the Wild they've had these incredible runs this year. What was the stat that 3 different 10-game point streaks?
I think that's right. Yeah, 3 different streaks of at least 10 games where they got a point.
This is the best Wild team by a large margin that we've had here in 21 seasons, is it? Because seasons wasn't played. And I'm thinking probably the best NHL team we've had. It compares with the best NHL team that we had probably was 81, 82. And then they got beat in the first round by the Blackhawks after they'd been to the Stanley Cup final the year before. But at least the best team we've had in Minnesota, at least the second best team we've had in Minnesota in 26 seasons, 47 seasons of the NHL. So, this team just said the Wild has never had a team anywhere near as good as this club. So once again, previous playoff failures probably should not be assigned to this club because they are good and they are explosive and they are relentless when they're behind in the third quarter and third period. So now what's going to be interesting is when you get to overtime, which there will be, if this thing goes 6, 2 of them will go to overtime at least because it's hockey. You could play all night. You don't get to have Kaprizov go out there 3-on-3 and score a goal in about 2 minutes. So the game's probably series be decided with some overtime thing. But I like the Wild to win. But St. Louis tonight is enormous, don't you think? It's enormous. If they win. If they win, it's they got a chance to get rid of them in 5. I think if they get beat, then you're in for a long haul. Then you're in for, you're back there in 2 weeks playing Game 7. I think if they get beat tonight, so it's huge tonight. And the Flower, we love having the Flower, but he hasn't been that good lately, right? The other guys outplayed him. Talbot. They still don't tell us who the goalie is, but don't you think Talbot's been better than him lately?
I think he has, although they both been pretty good. I think the Flower is like 9-2 overall since he got traded here. Yeah. He had that clunker. He had that clunker against Arizona, and he had one game before that, I think, where he gave up some goals. But yeah, I think Talbot's been better down the stretch. I think we're probably going to see both goalies at some point in this series, just because one of them's going to have a rough start, and they've got 2 options that are both pretty good. But Yeah, I mean the goalie decision is interesting. It's I don't think you can go. I don't think you can go. It's one of those where you can't really go wrong with it because I feel like both of them are capable, and Fleury obviously has the playoff experience and the playoff resume. I mean, my goodness, this guy's a future Hall of Famer who's won 3 Stanley Cups, but I don't know who I'd pick. Honestly, I don't know who I'd pick.
I think he'll start. Fleury will start tonight, don't you? I think they'll just do that. That's why they brought him in here to play games like this. But it's going to be 0-3 all over again, Mike. He's at the morning skate. They're going to be trying not to give you a hint as who the goalie's going to be, right? It's going to be
between
like
Fernandez and Rolison back then.
Yeah, Jacques wouldn't tell us that. Jacques didn't tell you until 20 minutes before the game, like it was some big dark secret. And I think you're going to see the same stuff this time, that they're not going to, you won't know who the goalie is until, you get to the arena and they put the lineup out or something. I don't know. Maybe they won't be as paranoid about it, but Jack wouldn't. The Fleury versus Talbot is a tougher to, is a probably a more dramatic decision than Rolly or for the nephew, right? So
yes,
but who they ended up going with mostly. Manny played most of the time, didn't he? The first series.
Manny played a lot of the first series, and then they switched to Rolison somewhere in there after Manny had a bad game.
Yeah.
And then I think it was Rolison pretty much the rest of the way. I think, but yeah.
Well, it'll be hopping, man. Their crowds the last month have been amazing. They've all been 19,000. It's people are ready to go. That's for sure. And Tom Reed and the folks, the bar owners on West 7th with these 8:30 kickoffs, they got to be just happier now, don't they?
Oh yeah, you got like two.
Yeah, good for newspapering, but it's great for the bars. You'll have you'll have a well-served, crazy crowd there that it's not like their usual families from Woodbury crowd tonight. This is going to be a hard-drinking, serious crowd that wants to kill somebody, and every call against the home team is going to be greeted with raucous disagreements. Even if somebody hits somebody over the head with a stick, we'll think we got robbed on it. So, yeah, it'll consume us here for could be a long spring of hockey, which we haven't had around. We've only had one of those since this team came to town.
Yeah,
that's what this team has been extremely. Again, it's been a team plagued by way too much positive thoughts. They've been treated way too kindly. This franchise, they deserve a lot more skepticism than they've had. But I got to say, I'm not skeptical right now. I think they're really good. The Wolves, I was highly skeptical going into the series once I saw how Russell planned to play. So but this, I'm not skeptical about these guys. But they've got a very tough opponent, so that'll be interesting. Well, St. Louis, you don't realize, you think of them as kind of more of a rugged outfit, but they're not. They're high scoring too. So
yeah,
you could have some 4-3 hockey games in the playoffs. Just think of that instead of 2-1.
Yeah, these should be fun games. These will be games too, where even if you get, if someone's up 3-1, the games aren't over. You used to think playoff hockey, that was the case, but especially, when both teams can score and you think about the Wild and how much they've been able to come back this year, these games will not be over until they're over. It's a good point you made too. I just hadn't really thought about the Wild in the context of their history, but this is the best team in Wild history as far as I can remember. You had the run with the team, 19 years ago, but that team wasn't much good anyway.
That was a miracle of Jacques coaching that team.
It was.
Yeah.
Until they ran into.
You look at that roster. How'd this happen?
Right. Until they ran into Giguère, who gave up, I think, 1 goal that whole series.
The Michelin Man, he was tough. There was, of course, the fact that he had blow-up pads where you look at it now, and the amount of net they were shooting at back then was like I got little teacups here and there. So, yeah, that team, that Anaheim team, did they win it? They won it, right? They won it. Did they win it?
I feel like they lost in 7, but I could be wrong about
They
that.
won one. They won one back then. I can't in one of those years. I just can't remember when.
Yeah, New Jersey won that one. That was
It's weird looking at the NHL standings though and seeing Florida with more points than any of this. One of the most unappreciated team franchises in history, where everybody thought they're going to have to move, and now they have 119 points or something. They had a fantastic year. They ended up with more than Carolina. So the two powers of the East, Carolina and Florida, which is Miami area, is pretty amazing to look at. And meanwhile, Montreal down there at the bottom of the standings are weird.
We'll see if Foligno, what's his health is for this series. He was skating. He was skating in practice on Sunday after taking that cheap hit in the Colorado game. And he's about as tough as they get. So I imagine he'll be out there. Yeah,
he'll play, but might have to get a little medicine out of a needle in the knee or something. But is it the knee that's his problem?
Yep, it was the knee. Well, let's finish up, Patrick, talking a little Twins. We're going to avoid NFL draft coverage. We've done plenty of that on Thursday or Friday show. I did a bonus show over the weekend. We got an Access Vikings that's out right now. So lots of draft talk, unless you've got a draft thought, Patrick. I don't think you do.
Not really. We're just, if Spielman had done the same thing as this guy did, we'd be screaming. But things were bad at first, but then everybody calmed down, and now we all think he's a genius again. So he will have to read from me, though. Quasi Adolfo Spielman will be his name here for the next.
Boy, I love it.
We'll run that joke into the ground, but anyway, beat that joke up for a while. So that's my only thought is it's funny. It's all over the map. I saw that some people were saying that the Packers had this great draft. Others were saying they had it's an odd draft because there were so few great players in it, I think, don't you?
I think so too.
You had quarterbacks and Malik Willis could go in the top 10. He goes in the third round, for goodness sakes.
Late third round at that. Yeah, it was like 89th overall, I think.
Yeah. My only thoughts are that, that it was talent-wise, it was a poor draft, and supposedly, at least as far as big names were concerned. So, I don't know.
You said something just now that sparked a transition for me here. You said something about Quasi, all of a sudden the people calm down and think he's not, think he's a genius again. Rocco Baldelli, much maligned last season, much maligned during their 4-8 start by some of us. Twins have now won 9 out of 10. And a lot of those were, AL Central, which I don't think is going to be a very good division at all. Then they get smoked in that first game of the Tampa Bay series. And you're like, okay, here we go again. But then they come back and have 2 routes of the Rays, who, were pretty good coming into this series. I think they were 4 or 5 games over 500, 3 games over 500, something. They're a pretty good team. They do it. The offense has gotten going. They got, they keep getting good pitching performances from Joe Ryan. They got one from Josh Winder on Sunday.
I've been talking him up for since spring training. Winder, I'm a big fan of his, so I'm kind of glad to see him get his chance.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know what to make when you're 13-9. It's you got forever to go, but I did not see a 9 out of 10 streak coming after that 4-8 start. I just didn't think they were very good, and maybe they're better than I thought.
Well, here I think the best thing that's happened. Throw out the pitching is the last week Kepler coming out of his coma and his coma has lasted since 2019. So you're the mini season, the full season, and then the start this year was abysmal. And all of a sudden, he hits a home run to left center. I almost fell off the couch, and he's had some competitive at bats. Even against lefties. So that would make a difference. And, my son, Chris, Mr. Base, he pointed this out to me the other day, and I hadn't really thought about it, that you might not want to get rid of Kepler, because if they take the shift away, he'll have 25 more hits a year because nobody bounces out to places that used to be base hits more than he does, because he pulls everything. But him coming back has been and becoming a threat in the lineup has made a difference. And all the people who were the commenters that we get at the Star Tribune who said, get rid of that Correa and bring up Royce Lewis because he had a few hits in St. Paul. There's a little track record here for this guy. I didn't think he was going to. I'm not sure that Miguel Sano's ever going to get over 150, right, with his batting average. I was pretty dang sure that Correa was not going to hit 150 with his track record. And he's a great player, and they, you get to see that in the field, and now you're getting to see it at the plate. He's had a lot to do with these hitting explosions that they've had. Ursula has had a little snag here for a couple of days, but I like him as a player too. The lineup, and here's the real shock. Buxton got hit in the hand, and he's not going to miss a month and a half. He came back after 2 days. So I thought for sure because last year he got hit in the hand and missed a month. So got to get his hands out of there when he's, he's got to stop doing that. But, you get him back, and obviously the starting pitching has been the story, though. I mean, this Joe Ryan looks, it's pretty phenomenal. I think we might have talked about it. What's going to be really interesting with him is if he gets hammered a couple of games in a row, because it's going to happen to everybody. Does he change anything? I hope he doesn't, because going after hitters, there's something about his fastball they don't like, this efficient, throw it over, good stuff, turn around and, have somebody make a play behind you. This guy has been just phenomenal. And in virtually every game we've seen from him, because he made 5 starts last year. And if he can keep that composure when things go bad, and I guess the one thing, and I to some degree make that same, when you're coming off a bad season, you get up to a bad start. You have a chance to get real skeptical, right? But in baseball cannot be compared to any other sport. There's going to be 6-game losing streaks, and if you're good, there's going to be 6-game winning streaks. And it was surprising to me how long it had been since they won 7 in a row. But it's nice to see that, yes, there is some potential here. Now, I don't think Pagan's your closer, because he gives up too many home runs, and he doesn't go after hitters like he supposedly had in his day. So the bullpen is still a big question. And Dylan Bundy is not going to be fantastic. He's going to be, we don't have to put him in there with Blyleven as the greatest pitchers and right-handed pitchers.
He's a fifth starter. He's a fifth starter.
But with the starting pitching they've had so far, and now that they're starting to hit, there's some potential here. What's going to be really interesting, Mike, is Miguel Sano going to become an extra player when he comes back? You could put Reusse at first base, and he's okay over there. He's got to be in a lineup every day, and I think he might come back as a platoon player. Sano.
Kirilloff's going to come back at some point too, right? Because he's been taking some swings in St. Paul, right?
I think they'd move him if they could move him, right?
For sure.
It's Rocco's very happy though, because they waived the 13 pitcher limit for the first 3 weeks of May now. So you can have 14 pitchers and 12 position players, which I think right now they're 13 and 13, but they will change that, I'm sure, and carry 14 pitchers here and have a 3-player bench. But I mean, it's nice that they started hitting the ball, because every it seemed like every hitting team was behind the 8 ball there. Look at the Yankees; they were awful they got shut out by Baltimore and Detroit, and now they won 9 in a row, 10 in a row, something like that. 10 out of all.
The Yankees and the Mets are on fire. It's New York. New York's got some good baseball right now.
Yeah, well, that's anyway. Yeah, it's been a nice little run here by the Twins, and maybe when they get home, eventually, it'll be 60 degrees someday before we die. Wouldn't that be something? The best thing about being in DC for 2 days is it was 73 degrees and sunny. It felt like midsummer heat wave. What the hell is wrong with us? Let's get some weather here.
It's getting better. I saw after today, we've got a bunch of days coming up that are like mid 60s, and then early next week we got some 70s.
And the 60 and not raining, right?
Yes. Yes. By the middle of this week, it's going to actually feel like spring, I think. But it's been like the worst April I can remember. I think what they say was like it was only like the 16th coldest April on record in Minnesota. That felt like the worst I've had.
I haven't even had my pool guy harassing me to open the pool. Usually it's open. Usually I'm saying, no, 2 more weeks. I don't want to start paying you. Now they haven't even started them yet. So, but let me say this about my disappointment with Minnesota sports fans.
Okay.
Not being more pessimistic, not being more skeptical. How can you go through an April like this in this godforsaken frozen hellhole that we live in and still be optimistic? I don't get it. You should all be grumpy. Everybody should be saying Quasi's a moron and this basketball team's a bunch of chokers. And this is, baseball. You can say, maybe they got a chance. And, it's hard to be skeptical about the Wild, but you should have more skepticism. You just lived through the worst April in the history of man. Why aren't you grumpier? That's what I want to know.
You took it all. You stole all the grumpiness for yourself. No, just kidding. Well, we'll see how the Wild does tonight. Should be a good series. It's just kind of like I've told you, it's the 3rd time ever that the Wild and Wolves are in the playoffs in the same season. So it's at least
but they've never been. This is only the second because the Wild, because of the quirk of the schedule, the Wolves, they aren't really in the playoffs at the same time.
That's true. The same season, at least. Yes, the Wolves are done. Yes, that's true.
They will be, if this series turns into a month from now, people won't even remember the Wolves were in the playoffs because of the attention the Wild will be getting. So.
Yeah, it's a funny tweet to finish with. I saw from Ryan Stenzel, used to be the one of the PR guys from the Wild. Says, I guarantee you the Wild will not blow 3 double-digit leads.
Yes, that is good.
That is true.
Good.
That is true.
Boy, let me say one last thing. That Warriors-Memphis game was great.
Yes, it was. I watched a lot of the fourth quarter.
It was great. It was great. Now, they've said that Morant missed a shot similar to the one that was not the same shot. Shot against us. He shot a wide open layup, to win the game because Ant was a moron on that play. But that was a hell of a finish. That was great. And I give Memphis a lot of credit for playing them that hard-nosed only 2 days after being done playing our boys. So that was kind of unfair, don't you think? They made them play them that quick.
Yeah, that was when I saw the schedule came out, and it was like Sunday at 2:30 was either going to be Game 7 against the Wolves or it was going to be Game 1 against the Warriors. That was kind of how they set the schedule. Yeah. So I was like, well, I guess they're playing either way. But yeah, they played Friday night here and had to open at home Sunday afternoon. That's a pretty quick turnaround for sure.
That was a hell of a basketball game, though. So I think the playoffs have been pretty good. I hear a lot of people say, some of them have been foul fest, but they've been some pretty good games. So
absolutely.
Even the Wolves games were pretty good. The fourth quarters, if you like to watch the home team collapse into a mess of mush, but they were good games. Any playoff game that you don't know who's going to win with 2 minutes to go, that's a good game, right?
Yes,
So,
it is. Yes, it is. All right, Patrick. Good stuff. We'll talk again next week. All right.
right, stop being so positive, Minnesota sports fans. That is the message for today. Goodbye.